So guys, welcome to another gardening video on my channel. Today, guys, you know what? I have to say, it hasn't been raining in our region for quite some time. Even when it does rain, it sprinkles, maybe some drizzles, but not any real rain. And it's been really extremely hot, right? So I thought I would do a video on how to have a drought tolerant garden, you know, so that it's still flourishing. So I'm going to give you a bit of tips on how to keep your garden still flourishing even though there hasn't been any rain and it's blistering hot. I hope you enjoy. I love you all. Let's do what it got. The first tip I would give is mulching. You can see here, I don't know if you can see the depth, but basically all of this, you see this is basically all mulch, right? You can see that the depth is basically here, and this all here is mulch. So mulch basically, when it does rain, it will retain the moisture that is actually in the soil, and it will help with less evaporation of the actual water when it does rain. So, you know, even with the plants, the roots go deep, right? So at least if you cover it with some compost, then, you know, the actual soil where the roots are also protected from the heat, and also will still keep the moisture in where the roots are placed. So I get that compost in, do some compost. So you can use different types of mulching. So I usually use compost, but you can also use straw. You can use wood chips. So I would avoid crops like grass or grass cuttings, just because, you know, sometimes they could actually produce more grass and you could have like grass weeds in there. So I would stay away from that. But yeah, my preferred are wood chips, straw, and obviously compost. So the next tip would be to group your actual vegetation, to group your crops, to group your plants together. So if you look over here, you know, we've grouped a lot of crops together, and it hasn't been raining a lot, but you know, they still basically work together in order to retain some moisture. So you can see this pumpkin, this one is underneath the corn, which basically creates a shade for the soil, for the corn, and for the pumpkin itself. So you see, when you group together, you're basically using all these plants' advantages and to help each other. So even the corn provides shade for the pumpkin provides shade for the corn, which then also retains some moisture in the garden. Also, if you group crops that have the same watering needs, then it's easier to actually monitor how much you need to be giving to each crop. So let's say, for example, you know, if you have a crop that needs a lot of water and then you pair it with something that doesn't really need a lot of water, you'll probably overwater or underwater a certain area, which will put one crop at a disadvantage. So trying to group crops that have the same watering needs, that really helps in avoiding underwatering and overwatering. So the next tip is plant selection, and I'm showing you some spinach because the spinach is doing what it needs because the spinach is one of these drought tolerant crops that you see now, even without a lot of water, it's still flourishing, still doing well. So I would definitely say choose the right crops that can tolerate drought, right? So I would say spinach is one. Herbs like rosemary, thyme, and lavender, these do really well when there is a drought and when it's really hot. So get these crops into the garden. Then we also have succulents. So succulents are definitely one that you should have in your garden if you want drought resistant crops. Look how well this is doing, and this hasn't been watered, so you know, and it's just really just going away. It's just flourishing, just you know, doing the most. So definitely get some cactus, some succulents into your garden. These really require a lot less attention and a lot less water. Another useful tip would be just to create some shade. So this you can actually do with some shade cloth, even trees. Even if you have some trees, you can see this tree here. This tree is already, this tree is creating some sort of a shade over here. So yeah, so yeah, creating some shade for the crops with a shade cloth. I think the shade cloth would be the best, so that you can actually direct it to the crops that need the most protection. So yeah, get a shade cloth in and protect those crops. Another tip would be to collect the rainwater. So basically, when it does rain, right, collect that water, and then when there is the dry periods, then you can use that water to then water in the garden, right? So then you also, now I know some areas they are experiencing water shedding. So in some areas you're not allowed to use a lot of water, and also sometimes it's just cut off. There is no water in the taps. So yeah, definitely, if that is the case, then using the rainwater when it does rain to actually water your garden, that would really help the garden. So another tip would have to do with how you actually water. So now basically what I've seen with watering is that we basically just brush over the soil. Once we know that the soil is wet, we say, okay, let's move on to the next area, right? And basically what we should be doing is watering deep, right? We should water deep and long in certain areas, so that this reaches the roots of the crops, right? So basically we are targeting the roots of the crops and not the raffages or whatever, but the actual roots of the crops. So make sure that you are watering long and deep for these crops, so that it reaches the roots of the plant, and also that it's less susceptible to evaporation, right? And what I would also say is the timing. When do you water? So you should water early in the mornings, really early, before the sun is scorching, or at late night. I like the late afternoons, because then the sun is already down, and also it gives the water enough time. No, it actually gives the crops enough time to soak up that water before being evaporated in the actual morning. So I like the night. I just prefer that. So the last tip would be soil amendments, right? And this means compost, right? Add some compost to your garden. So compost basically has material that basically keep the moisture in the garden, right? So if you amend your soil with these components, it will keep the moisture in for longer in your garden. But now the difference between mulching and soil amendments is that this is actually integrating the compost with the soil. The mulching, you just put it on top and you leave it on top. The soil amendments, you actually, you integrating all of that compost, all of that with the soil. So this works with food scraps. If you bury food scraps under a plant, this will add a lot of nutrients and moisture to this crop, because then basically it will just have like a source of moisture directly by their roots. So soil amendments. So yeah guys, I hope this video was really helpful. It really hasn't been raining a lot in South Africa. Let me say in my region, right? And in Midrand also, I've heard that there hasn't been any water as well. So, I thought I would make this video, to basically help those areas that haven't got a lot of water, that haven't got a lot of rain, and the ones that are basically in the heat. Yeah, because for my area, it's been very hot. Luckily, we still have some water, so we are able to actually spray the garden. But then, not everybody has that luxury. And also, I honestly prefer when the rains on the garden, because it's just the garden, you see how effective the rain is. So I thought, let me make a video. I hope it is helpful. I hope you do learn something out of it. If you would like to know which crops are drought tolerant, put it in the comments. Like this video, subscribe, do all the lovely things, watch till the end, and then I will then I will create a second part of the crops that you can grow in drought tolerant periods. All right, I love you guys. I love you guys all. Love, peace. Let's grow every single day.